And welcome to a special season finale edition of the Upstate Orange podcast. It's Thursday, April 11th, 2013, and we're coming at you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. An exciting postseason run for the Syracuse Orange that ended abruptly in the national semifinals. We'll recap the loss to Michigan, recap the season, take a look ahead to next year's squad. We'll try our hand at some Syracuse trivia and much more. I'm Jim Sinacropi, and I'm joined in studio tonight by my co-host, a man who did not declare early for the NBA draft and stayed all 4 years at William & Mary, Matt Verkey.
It's a tough decision, but I came back for the senior year.
You turned down a lot, and it cost you. Your stock dropped.
That's right.
Also, via telephone, our resident college hoops guru, Brad Connor.
Hey, guys.
How you doing, Brad? And also in studio tonight, it's great to welcome back Zach Young, who was actually in Atlanta this past weekend, Zach, and now you're back north.
Yeah, it's a little the weather's not as nice up here.
We're going to talk about it all over the next hour, and alongside our producer Jeremy Hunt in the booth. And the Upstate Orange podcast is brought to you by Madej Maris and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. And also by Generations Bank, generations of service for over 140 years. Visit them online at mygenbank.com and check out their new mobile banking app. And Newark Pilots Baseball season packages now available for the 2013 season at beautiful Colburn Park. Visit newarkpilots.com for more information. Well, fellas, we were here, at least Brad and I did a little show with Dave Barnick last week, a little Final Four preview. I predicted an easy win against Michigan, and I was dead wrong. But very frustrating because what I saw was a team that was much better than Michigan, that just played their worst offensive game that they played in a long time, and a few bad calls at the end, and we were still right there, but we couldn't pull it off. And I don't know how to react to Syracuse losing in the national semifinal, because it hasn't happened since 1975. I know, Brad, that you were confident we were going to pull that one out.
Yeah, I thought we'd see the team that we saw against Indiana and to a lesser degree against Marquette, and we saw the team that we saw against Louisville in the regular season, against Marquette in the regular season. I mean, they reverted, and that was disappointing.
And Verk, you were on vacation last week down in Myrtle Beach, but back home to watch that game. And, of course, we were texting back and forth a little bit. I went through my texts a couple days after the game, and I was furious. I was out of my mind that night.
You were a little upset. Yeah, I mean, it's a game that, Syracuse got themselves obviously down 12 at halftime, and it's not like they had a big run in the second half or anything like that, but they, just clawed, and, they had a couple chances there to tie it. Sutherland had a three to tie it. A lot of things happened in that game in the last minute and a half that if Syracuse could have just caught one little break, I think they could have won that game.
Yep.
You think, like, when Trish missed that foul shot, it would have cut it to three with, 50 seconds to go. They could have just played defense, and instead he misses. Now you got a foul. But, the fouling kind of worked out because Michigan was going 1 for 2 a lot. Syracuse was one play away from winning that game. They just didn't make that play.
They need about 3 more minutes maybe, although maybe not because our starting backcourt was fouled out. Now, Zach, you were in Atlanta. What was the scene like? A lot of Syracuse?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It was pretty spread out, all the teams, but I'd say Michigan had out of all the teams there, I thought
really?
the most people. But there was a big Cuse contingent before the game. We saw a lot of people out on the street, but it was, like I said, it was pretty spread out.
Did you find
neat.
the Cuse bar down there?
Yeah, we did.
Really?
It was neat.
We remember the name of it?
I don't.
For the next time we're back in Atlanta, for maybe Georgia Tech or something.
I'm sure we can look it up. But we actually walked around. Just like Centennial Park, and took everything in, and then we went in there, and I guess the owner is an alumni of Syracuse, so he had a flag hanging up, so it was pretty much all Syracuse, and then anybody else that came in, they got booed.
Good.
But Lawrence Moulton came, and he was inside, and he kind of hung out for a bit, but it was a pretty cool scene before.
How about your seats? Where were you sitting?
We were the lower level, the second, like row 35. There's 36 rows in the Georgia Dome, so we were the lower level, like above one of the tunnels where you would come out. But it's kind of if you watch the game, like we were on the Michigan end,
like baseline, even with the baseline, or just behind the baseline.
Kind of like corner of like over by the side.
So what's it like watching a game, Verk? I know you go down to most Final Fours. This year you didn't, and Syracuse played. But what's it like watching a game in that type of arena?
There's just so many more people than I've ever seen at a basketball game. I think it was 75,000 that was there.
Do you enjoy watching? Can you see the action?
I could see from my seats, yeah. I don't think I would want to be much higher than we were. Even though we were in the first level, you think first level, decent seats. They're good seats, but the court is in the middle of, like, picture a game in the middle of the Carrier Dome.
Yeah.
So it's like that. Only the Georgia Dome's bigger.
And they've talked about doing that, too, in the Dome, putting it in the middle for maybe the first time Duke comes to town or something. But
yeah, it's, I've been to 3 Final Fours, and did you get the little radio thing? Did you buy any of those?
No.
I said you can buy these things because people who sit way up can't see or hear really, so you can listen in, you can tune into different people who are broadcasting the game and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just crazy. You go to a Dome and there's 32,000 people there, and you think, oh my God, but there's 75,000 or 76,000
twice as many
in the
as
Georgia
at the
Dome. So it's definitely it's an experience, no doubt.
Well, I don't want to. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Don't want to spend too much time talking about the Michigan game. Kind of want to look ahead to next year. We can talk about Michael Carter-Williams leaving, but a few things in that game that I just can't get out of my head. And Verk, one of them we talked about how the last possession when they called timeout, Cooney called timeout in the backcourt instead of taking it across, calling timeout. You can set up a play. It just seemed crazy to me.
Yeah, it just seemed like they were a little disorganized. I think when he missed the first free throw, made the second, and then they kind of threw it in Cooney, and they're like, all right, let's call timeout now. Either call it before you take it in or dribble in front of your bench and call timeout.
Right.
Especially when you don't have your point guards. Then you can set up a play from out of bounds to maybe get a three-pointer or something. They put a lot of pressure on Cooney on the last possession, obviously. And Just a little thing,
they said they tried to get it to Sutherland, who came off the low screen like he does it every time. And he wasn't open, but I wanted to see it go to C.J. Fair, personally, for a quick 2. Then you got about 8-9 seconds left. You go for a steal, because Michigan was having trouble inbounding the ball late in that game. They had no timeouts left. But
you want to get a shot up in case you missed it, you have a chance to get an offensive rebound. And
I think they talked about in that last play never led us to believe that there was an option B. And they said that Sutherland was the play they were going to run him off the screen, and it wasn't there. So Cooney had to throw something up. I mean, that makes no sense.
So Cooney was your option.
Win a Final Four game or tie a Final Four game to not have an option B, and why C.J. Fair was never discussed as part of that play. Who's he's the most accurate 3-point shooter on that team. Why you wouldn't try and get him a shot?
What 2 or 3? Yeah.
Just a 2. None of it made any sense. And
if Sutherland is covered coming off a screen and they're paying so much attention to him, you'd think it would be even easier to get it to C.J. Fair. So, yeah, that was really frustrating. And also, obviously, the foul calls were so frustrating to see our biggest possession come down. And for the first time, Trish or Carter-Williams isn't on the court, and, it's Trevor Cooney time. And that kind of limits our options, because normally what Boeheim does at the end of a game situation like that is kind of what he did here. He lets the guy with the ball break somebody down and try to get to the basket and either shoot, draw a foul, or pass on the drive. But this time it was Cooney. And then
I thought both of Carter Williams' 4th foul.
That was the worst call of the game.
Yeah, it was sickening.
To me.
That one seemed pretty obvious that it was a bad call. And then even the handoff, I thought, was kind of like they just kind of ran into each other. If Carter Williams would have fell down, you see that 100 times a game, and it usually doesn't get called. It wasn't like he moved into the guy. He kind of just did a handoff, and the Michigan guy ran into him, and he happened to stand up. The block on Trish, the charge, that's a bang-bang play. I don't think it was a horrible call. Watching it, when I watched it live, I thought it was originally a block, and slow motion is so close. I mean, you can't really. That one I don't really fault the ref on, but those other, especially the offensive
4th on Williams, was terrible.
The Hardaway one, that was a big play in the game. Get the ball back right there.
They missed the travel. They missed the travel on Hardaway. They missed the travel on McGarry.
Travel when they threw it back in out of bounds to get that last layup.
Yeah.
He switched his pivot foot as he was falling out of bounds.
Yeah, and you'd like to see those things called because these are the refs at the highest level in the game that are selected for the Final Four. But it's been a theme all year and all tournament, even in the championship game, and the other Final Four game with Louisville Wichita State, some bad officiating. And I don't know what we can do. I don't think anybody wants to see refs go to the monitors 8 times a game. But why can't a ref carry a device, with screen this size in their pocket, pull it out, review it on the spot with another ref, and make a quick change? I mean, I'm just saying
it's the toughest game to officiate.
It is.
Yes, it's so hard, especially at that level. You have great athletes everywhere, flying all over the court. It's just it's hard, But when you're in the national semifinal game, you would think that they would make an obvious offensive foul call when he clearly pushed his arm off. That was, like you said, that was huge. And I thought the first time I saw it, I thought the last 10 times I saw it that wasn't a charge. I just think the charge call is called too much. I heard Jay Billis, if you ever listen to him on ESPN, that's all he ever talks about. It's way, way too much. And even Doug Gottlieb, Syracuse's number one enemy, he said that Syracuse pretty much got screwed on a couple plays. Unlike just like some other teams did in the tournament as well. But
yeah,
what are you going to do?
That raises a good point. It feels like the bias is always in favor of the defensive guy on the block charge call. It seems like unless it's an obvious block, they're going to go with the charge.
It's kind of like a strikeout in baseball. I think the refs or the umpires kind of get excited to do it.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, charge. A big crowd goes crazy. I don't know. That was a tough one to swallow, though.
Yeah, it
would have been funny to see if how many free throws Trish would have made there.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, too. That's why that call didn't bother me quite as much as the other ones, because I don't think Trish would have knocked them both down anyway.
Yeah.
But
he wouldn't have fouled out, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I'll tell you guys what, it kind of felt like poetic justice for Brandon Trish to end his career on a charge. You remember how many times over the course of 4 years he'd just go barreling in and knock somebody over and get the charge call, and after 4 years he still hadn't figured out the ability to pull up.
Yeah, and pull up and bank one in, off the block there, and maybe it's a different story. But, overall, this team, back in December, I was harping on the fact that we had the best team in the country, and by the time we got into February, I'd backed off of that and, really didn't have much faith left in this team. And then come the postseason, we start playing like this again, and then, just have a big letdown in that semifinal game.
Yeah, I think you can't argue the fact that we had the best defense in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, you held Michigan to 21 points in the second half.
Yeah, and Verk, how about the announcers that were saying that Michigan was picking apart the zone and Michigan was, figured out the zone? No, they didn't figure out the zone. We didn't lose because of our defense.
No, not at all. They hit, in the first half we gave up 37 points was what, we gave up 39 to Marquette, but Michigan hit 3 threes from 25 feet. There's really not a defense to stop that. And the defense, and the players talked about it, even Coach Bam said it wasn't as good as it had been in that first half.
Right.
But second half, they shut Michigan right down. If we just scored a little bit more, we could have
that's
been
why
playing for a championship.
we really could have rolled right over them in the second half, but we couldn't score. So that's why, as you mentioned earlier, we kind of clawed our way back into it. Michigan couldn't score unless maybe, from the free throw line, 1 or 2 here or there. And we would score maybe once of every 3 or 4 possessions, and we slowly got back into it.
They got it to 53-50.
Yep.
And Sutherland had a wide
corner
open three.
Shot, yep.
And if he hits that, I think they win. But he, everybody in the place was standing, and he just
missed it.
He just didn't have a good night. I think if he would have made one of the, he had that dunk with a minute. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
It was like all of a sudden he takes to the basket and just slams it. And he missed a couple in transition early. I think if he just would have made a bucket early, maybe he would have got the nerves out.
And I think that was the first time Sutherland actually drove to the basket all season too.
No, he drove the other time and he was wide open. He got blocked.
Oh,
yeah, early in the game by McGarry, who was all over the place in the first half.
But he's a great player.
He's going to be awesome.
And you look at the, we can kind of complain about the game Michael Carter-Williams had, but, Trey Burke, National Player of the Year, 1 for 8 from the field, and that's what's frustrating. We held, the Player of the Year to, 7 points. You'd think we'd win the game, And, Hardaway's 4 for 16. Nobody, Robinson had a pretty decent game for them, but.
Freshmen, they're all young, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other reason why I thought we were going to have our way with them. And really, it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't not take anything away from Michigan, but it was less what Michigan did and more what we couldn't do. Simple things. But Brad, you've watched every Syracuse season going back to the early '80s. Where does this one rank up? Does it of all our Final Four appearances, is this at the bottom because we lost in the semis, or is this a disappointing season?
I think this one's comparable to '96, but I think there are other teams that didn't make a Final Four whose season would rank higher than this one. I think last year's Final Eight team, I think, was a better team, and they just fell one game short in the tournament and ran into a pretty good Ohio State team
without our starting center too.
Right. I think the team that lost in the Final Eight in 1989 to that Illinois team. I can think of one or two Pearl teams that probably were just as good as this team. I think this team got hot for a 2-week stretch, which was a good time to get hot, and we'll remember them that way.
Well, I think that was most interesting to me this year was that Boeheim totally changed the system around to, slowing it down and playing a half-court game, which was great on defense, but our half-court offense was so terrible. I'm wondering going forward, in the next couple of years, is he going to stick with it? I mean, the defense is really good, and it's not only the personnel that we had this year that played it, it's the Boeheim's commitment to it and the wrinkles he puts in over the past several years. It's just become, almost a perfect defense. And so I'm wondering if, next season we're going to see more of these 46-51 games, or if, they're going to open it up a little bit more. So I don't know, Zach, what do you think?
Just think it depends. I just don't think they were a really high-powered offense. And I read they had each coach who played against Syracuse this year, they did a scouting report. Like, they did a scouting report on all the Final Four teams, and Mike Bray, the Notre Dame coach, said, they're kind of running what we did that one year where we made a run. They called it the burn offense, where they would run 20 seconds off the shot clock and then try to score. And he said, if you watch them, they're always trying to get a mismatch, but they're not really running and gunning like they have in the past couple of years. And that he thought that was by design, and it was smart on Boeheim's part, just because the defense was great, like you said, but they really didn't have a huge low post threat, and they only had a couple guys that could really put it in the basket.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, I would like to see him push a little bit more initially.
I think they ran when they had opportunity.
Well, off a turnover.
They just they don't have guys who could just like Johnny Flynn or guys who Deion Waiters who could create their own shots as quick as they had to run a little bit more offense because they weren't as offensively talented as we've been in the past. They were decent on offense, just they couldn't shoot the ball at all. And it's we talked about it before. When you can make shots, it's an easy game, and they didn't really have great shooters on this team.
I will say, at halftime of that game, I was like, "Oh man, they're gonna get blown out," because they didn't really play. They didn't really just even. I know it got close at the end, but Michigan kind of let them back in. I mean, they missed a bunch of free throws. They turned it over. They kind of panicked, I thought, versus our press. And I was a little surprised. There's 4 minutes left, and I looked at the guys next to me and I said, he hasn't really put his press on this year, but you can't just sit in a 2-3. And the press kind of worked.
Yeah.
It definitely worked. So.
And it continued to work late in the second half too. Caused a lot of trouble. There's a lot of near turnovers at the end of that game too. The one Sutherland let go, or tried to save. That we could have got, and the ball that was rolling out of bounds that Hardaway saved. I mean, as I was at that point of the game, I was on my knees right in front of the TV, and I see that ball rolling. I'm like, I'm certain that ball's going out of bounds, and then Hardaway saves it, and of course we don't get the loose ball. Like, it didn't seem like we did all game long. Hard to believe that you get out hustled in a Final Four game, but this was the MO of the team all year, I suppose, and it just kind of caught up with them. We said we didn't think they could win 6 games. I guess we were right, but that
was disappointing. I heard in the post game, Brandon Trish said they didn't come out with enough energy. I don't know how you allow that to happen in a Final Four game. I think some of the success and the media acclaim of the 2-3 zone, I think they sort of let it get to them a little bit, maybe.
Well, the other thing is Trish had pregame comments
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just ridiculous. I can't remember exactly what they were saying.
So they thought they had a mismatch at every position.
Yeah, and they said that
You're playing against the National Player of the Year. You got a mismatch at every position.
Yeah, but you don't need to give these guys any type of bulletin board material before a game like that, and especially from your senior. That's something that I'd expect Deion Waiters to say. Trish was our senior.
I think the only mismatch Syracuse had was with C.J. Fair. If you think about it, McGarrity's 100 times better than any of our centers.
Yeah, I think
Trey Burke's better than Michael Carter-Williams. Tim Hardaway Jr., whatever his name is better than Trish.
Yeah, it could have a point there. They're younger, but
guys, we talked all season about the leadership and whether or not it was there on this team. And, I think you could sort of tell as they're going into this Final Four game where they didn't really have that guy. If Trish is your leader and he's off talking junk about mismatches and then not really leading the team. And one thing I saw, if you want to consider Carter Williams as your leader of his point guard, he fouls out, and what does he do?
I saw that.
Game. What does he do? He goes over to the bench and puts a towel over his head. He's out of it, and the game's completely over in his mind, even though by all accounts it wasn't over.
Right.
That's your starting point guard that all of a sudden doesn't give a crap anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, speaking about Michael Carter-Williams, we all know he's declared to go pro. It's no surprise there. We said all year, he could use another year. He's not good enough. I can't believe he's going to, he thinks he's going to be a great NBA player. I'm not an NBA scout. That's not my expertise. I haven't had much success over the years predicting what college player is going to have a great NBA career. But that's kind of the way it is now. Of course, we'd love to have Michael Carter comes back next year, work on his jump shot, and play another year of college. But he's 23 years old. They're predicting him to be top 12. He says he's going to be number 1. So he's got to go. Do you think, Brad, that is a bad decision by Michael Carter-Williams?
No, in fact, I think it's a good decision, and the biggest reason for that is they're saying this high school class that's graduating this year is one of the best on record, and once those guys are all one and done, Carter-Williams is going to fall deep into that draft if he stayed. I think this is his sweet spot. He got his team to the Final Four. I think as a point guard, he take away the one game in the in the Final Four, and I think people still remember him as a guy that is a 6'6" point guard and somebody who's got a lot of potential, and that's what the NBA draft's on, is potential.
Yeah. Well, he's a unique package, I guess. Vert, you see him running the point in the NBA, or guard and shooting guard in the 2 slot, or?
Yeah, he's going to play the point. He obviously can't play the shooting guard position, and we talked about it earlier. If he can just be a steady point guard, he brings a lot of athleticism, obviously a lot of height, and maybe he can post up even some in the NBA. The NBA is all isolation and pick and roll, which I think he'd be, Syracuse pretty much pick and roll is all they do, so he's pretty good at that. He obviously needs to improve his shooting, which I guess you can say that's going to come eventually, but
now they can devote his full time to basketball.
Yeah, I don't blame him for going. If you're going to be a lottery pick, I think it's smart to go. And we talked about some guys who hurt themselves by staying, and you're not going to have that opportunity to make $3-4 million a year, for the rest of your life. So I don't blame him for going. I'd like to see him come back. I don't think he's going to be an impact player his rookie year. But, in a couple of years, maybe he'll be a steady NBA point guard.
Well, we could have Deion Waiters coming back for his senior year. Carter Williams, in a different world. Of course, if it was that world, a lot of our competition would be a lot better, too. That's the...
Well, I read somewhere, though, we've had the third most people declare early in the last 7 years or something like that.
I believe it. There's been a ton of them.
Well, when you consider the 1 year, Devendorf, Harris, and Flynn...
Wes Johnson,
Dante Green,
Dion. Anybody else we're missing out of that
There's
group?
A whole lot of them.
That might be Brad's trivia question.
Carmelo.
Yeah, Anthony.
If you go back there.
How far you go back, yeah.
Well, speaking of going pro, how about C.J. Fair? That's the one I'm nervous about. I just want April 16th to come and go and not hear any headlines, because he's got to come back for us to have a top 10 team next year, I think. Do you think C.J. Fair is going to test the waters here, Zach? Or?
I hope he doesn't. I could see him being a guy that maybe goes without the agent. Just
Yeah.
I don't see what you have to lose in his spot. He's a junior. Go see how you measure up. Maybe you perform well and you come out, or maybe you can see what you have to work on and you come back. But I hope he doesn't. That's for sure. I think if he comes back, he's going to have a chance to be the ACC Player of the Year.
That's right.
Which is kind of weird to say, but I think he's got a chance at that.
And honestly, a chance to be one of the most beloved Syracuse players ever. I mean, Trish stayed for 4 years, started for 4 years, the winningest player in Syracuse history. And I think when it's all said and done, we all appreciate what he did. We kind of come down hard on Brandon a lot because of him not maybe living up to his potential that we see. But CJ Fair, if he comes back his senior year, leads us to an ACC title, gets us back potentially to a Final Four, he'll go down as one of my favorite players of all time. I mean, I love the guy right now as it is. But what do you think, Brad? CJ going to be back?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. If he's going to trust the evaluators, I think what he's going to probably find out is he's limited offensively because he's only comfortable going to his left, and he's not as versatile as he probably needs to be to play a 3 in the NBA, because I don't think he's big enough to play 4. And his shooting's gotten better, but he probably needs to be able to demonstrate that more. But again, I mean, you can't account for circumstances either. And does his family need money? And is it a good draft year to come out? There's a lot of things that kind of play into it that it's easy for us to say, well, he's not ready, his game needs this and that. But we're talking about human beings that are making life decisions. And
yeah, I mean, if I was to...
It doesn't always dictate that.
If I was 22 years old and I had a chance to forego my senior year and get a job in any profession making, guaranteed $800, $900 million, you bet I'd be gone. I'd be gone in a second. So, I'll come back and get the degree at a later date. So, we sometimes talk about these guys, like you say, yeah, come on back, improve your game. They can be so much better. How can you not want to come back? Well, it's a lot of money.
I mean, Carter Williams' house just burnt down, too. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I heard he was pretty well. His family's pretty well off.
It was a nice house.
Yeah, it was a very nice house. Not sure what his parents do, but they seem to be well off.
His mom, I did read an interview with his mom. His mom was not, 100% on board with his decision.
Really?
She was kind of, well, it's his choice, but I'd like to see him come back. And he says he's going to finish his degree.
They all say that.
Yeah.
But they don't. I mean, Carmelo said that.
He was older than I thought, too.
Yeah, he's 23 years old. So
how is he 23 years old? Are you sure about that?
Yeah. You know what they do?
Well, he went to a prep school for a year.
Gee, I was 21 when I graduated college after 4 years.
Yeah, I saw 20. I thought he was 22. I don't know how old he is, but
is he 23, Brad? You got that in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me. I'm surprised he's actually 23. I know he went to a postgraduate year out of high school after his senior year. I think that was all planned, so he's at least a year older than maybe the rest of the kids in his class. But 23, I'll check that.
They also, I read that a lot of these players try to, get a little older so they stand out amongst the competition as they're coming up through high school.
Yeah. While we're talking, is Louisville going to the ACC next year?
No, one more year.
Yeah,
they're going to spend one year in the American Athletic Conference.
The guy we were talking to down there, we were asking him that. He goes, "We're in purgatory for a year."
Yeah, right.
I looked at their conference like SMU.
It's horrible.
Tulane.
UConn and Cincy, right?
Yeah,
and that's it.
And then,
yeah, it's a strange deal, but it's just a 1 year. He said they couldn't get in until Maryland left, so they can't go to the ACC. Maryland has one more year apparently,
right,
according to this guy, and then they're in.
You know what? Let's shuffle it right now. Let's get Maryland out and get Louisville in.
Yeah, I don't understand why they won't. I mean, I'm sure there's more to it than what.
I think it's more for the Big East needs Louisville on the football side, maybe for one more year for scheduling and for the TV and everything.
I'm sure there's buyouts involved and all that kind of stuff.
But yeah, I mean that's what really hit me now as we sit here, a week removed from the end of the season, is that the Big East is over. It's done. We talked about it being done and what it was going to be like, but we still had games left to watch, and I was still rooting for Louisville on Monday night to bring home the title for the Big East.
Sure.
And but now it's done. Our next basketball event is ACC Media Day.
It's going to be an ACC logo on the back of those jerseys next year.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Real quick before we go to the break, Trish and Sutherland, what's their future hold? I mean, I think when you talk about potential, I think Brandon Trish, NBA teams see a little potential in Brandon Trish as a second-round selection. His body physically, he's got a shot.
I just don't think he can score in the NBA. I see him having a hard time. Maybe he can be one of those guys that can just be like a lockdown defender. He can develop into that, but I see him making a living somewhere. I think he's going to be
Turkey.
But I don't know. I just don't see it in the NBA.
And what about Sutherland?
No chance. Can't create his own shot for one thing. I mean, I don't.
He's one-dimensional.
Yeah. So is Mark Novak or what the Novak kid for.
You just got to find some of those guys. You just got to find the right fit.
It's weird who makes it in the NBA and who doesn't. I mean, there's some total studs from college who never even do anything in the NBA. And then guys like Mark. What's Novak's name? It's not Mark. Steve Novak.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
He's
freaking unbelievable in the NBA, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he's freaking.
He can guard a little bit in the post. And he can knock down threes. He just sits in a corner and shoots threes.
Yeah, you get in the right system, and just like in college, you get in the right system or wherever.
That's a lot of circumstances with where you end up in the NBA. I think that's one thing that happened to Johnny Flynn. Remember he got drafted over to Minnesota.
Yeah, and they drafted
Rubio as well.
Ricky Rubio.
He went to Houston for a while. He had a bad back, and you just kind of fall off to the side.
Now he's in Australia.
Yeah. And
number 6 pick in the draft. 3 years ago?
Yeah, same with Wes Johnson and where's Dante Green right now? I mean, he's on the roster in Sacramento,
but improved.
Is Jeremy Lin, who's languishes on the bench until somebody gives him a shot, and you realize this guy can play.
Earl Clark for Louisville, same thing. He was almost out of the league. Now he's found a spot on the Lakers. He's doing pretty well.
Well, let's step aside, hear from our sponsors. When we come back, Brad's got some trivia for us, some Orange trivia. And then we're going to take a look at next year's squad. Never too early, so we'll be right back. Attention, Finger Lakes residents. Have you been injured and deserve compensation? Call Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. Your case deserves personal attention. At Madej, Maris, and Ricky, they know you by name, not just a number on a folder. Call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911. That's 315-568-0911. Madej, Maris, and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys.
The Newark Pilots. See tomorrow's Major League stars today. For more information, go to newarkpilots.com.
The most valuable things are always passed down from generation to generation. It's true for your family, and it's true for our bank. For more than 140 years at Generations Bank, we've greeted you by name, planned with you for the future, and stood by you when you needed a hand. It's what we do, and what we'll continue to do for generations into the future. We might look different now, but in the important ways, we're exactly like we've always been. Stop in your local branch or go to mygenbank.com.
And welcome back to the Upstate Orange podcast. Thank you to our sponsors, Madej, Maris, and Ricky, Generations Bank, and Newark Pilots Baseball for supporting this podcast. Also our coverage of Section 5 high school basketball here on FingerLakes1.com. This is our last official basketball show of what was a busy winter of covering high school basketball, talking about Syracuse. And it was, we really couldn't have done it without those sponsors. Madej, Maris, and Ricky. Don't forget that personal injury hotline, 568-0911. That's 315-568-0911. Generations Bank, Menzo Case and Company. You should check out their new mobile banking app. Even if you don't have an account there, you should download that. And
I'll look into it.
And Newark Pilots Baseball, it's with basketball ending, it's baseball season, and anybody that lives in the Finger Lakes, you got to go to Coburn Park. The place is great. It's a great place to take the kids, great food. College players from all across the country come to compete in the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League. They've expanded that league this year. There's a team in Syracuse and Rochester as well, and Newark's going to host the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League All-Star Game in July. So that's newarkpilots.com. For more information there, and thanks again to our sponsors. So, Brad, before we get ahead and look at next season, look at the new faces that we got coming in, and kind of talk about what we're looking like next year, you got some trivia for us.
I do, yeah. I went a couple different ways tonight. As I go down a path, I get diverted onto a different path. So I got a couple different things for you guys I'll throw at you. But for some reason, I've gotten on this kick of double doubles this season for whatever reason. So I want to ask you guys, how many double doubles? How many players can you name that averaged a double double for Syracuse, the Boeheim era?
DC.
Yeah, that's the obvious one, right? Coleman, Brad, number one.
Yeah. What year?
What year was he? His junior year.
Coleman averaged 17 and 11 as a junior.
I think he had it as a freshman.
He did not do it as a freshman. He had only 8 or 9 rebounds as a freshman.
Well, senior year?
Senior year, 18 and 12.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also his sophomore year, 14 and 11.
Wow, so 3 times.
3 of his 4 years averaged a double-double. There's been...
the Motor City Masher, the long left arm of the law.
There's 3 other guys that have done it in the Boeheim era.
Only 3?
Well, 4 counting Coleman.
Okay.
3 more.
The others.
Ronnie Cycli.
That's not a bad guess.
Cycli did not.
Ooh.
I don't think Wallace got enough rebounds.
Maybe his senior year. No. I'm going to go on a limb and say Wallace his senior year. He must average about 10 or 11. Finished top 3 rebounding all time. Syracuse.
John Wallace did not.
Okay, so much for that.
He averaged 9 rebounds, 22 points, but 9 rebounds per game as a senior.
Well, wait, we're talking Boeheim here, so I can go ahead and say Roosevelt Bowie.
Roosevelt Bowie did not.
Oh,
wow.
That's shocking.
That's a pretty good guess. He didn't. As a senior, Bowie, that was his junior year. As a senior, Bowie had 16 and 8.
How about Rick Jackson?
Rick Jackson's an excellent guess. He's one of them. 13 and 10 as a senior.
Senior year. Now there's a guy who improved every year. He still could never go to his right, though.
He's the last real good offensive post guy we've had.
Yeah, and he was really only good for that one senior year. Not that he wasn't good before, but that senior year was his showcase.
Yeah, he lost a bunch of weight. He lost like 30 pounds in the off season. He was great as a senior.
So there's 2 more.
2 more.
Double-double could also be assists, right?
Could also be assists.
I don't think anybody ever averaged over 10
Sherm.
assists, though, for Syracuse. That'd be the only one.
That's a lot of assists.
Yeah, I don't think that even Sherm averaged 10 assists, did he, Brad?
Trevor Douglas did not average 10 assists in any season.
Hakeem Warwick.
Good guess.
Warwick's not a bad guess, but he did not.
Not right, though.
Arenzi?
His senior year as well, maybe. I don't think he had the rebounds, though.
21 and 9 as a senior.
Wow, close.
Who's that?
Onuaku.
19 and 8. No, that was Warwick.
Oh, Warwick.
Onuaku, he wasn't. I don't think he was.
He probably averaged like 6, 7 rebounds a game.
Onuaku was 10 and 7 as a junior. He was 10 and 5 as a senior.
He's banged up most of that year.
He rebounded better as a freshman and sophomore. Yeah, as a sophomore, he was 13 and 8. He was great. I remember he was a tremendous rebounder when he first got there, but then he kind of
Redshirted a year.
Redshirt.
He was there for 5 years.
Yep. Not Onuaku.
Geez, I'm thinking guys like Damone Brown.
It's gotta be rebounders. You gotta think rebounding.
It's gotta be, yeah.
I have to think too hard on this one, really.
Did we just say Carmelo yet?
You've not said Carmelo.
Yeah,
If you did, you'd be correct.
Yeah.
Man, I was thinking about him too. I didn't think he averaged 10 rebounds though.
22 and 10.
Jeez.
Dominant. So there's one more.
He averaged exactly 10 rebounds, 10.0. So one other.
There's one more.
Etan Thomas.
No, pretty good guess.
Guess.
No.
How about Otis Hiller, Conrad McRae? Let's get all those guys.
Was 14 and 9, 9.3 rebounds a game as a senior.
We got a cat over there, Brad?
Freaking thing doesn't shut up.
So not Otis Hill, not Conrad McRae.
No. Otis Hill as a senior was 15-6. As a junior was 12-6. So no. Conrad McRae.
How could we not get this?
Daryl Watkins.
12-7.
Terrence Roberts. Hey.
Fourth never scored that much.
No.
Or rebounded that much.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Brad. Give us the decade.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Lauren Ellis?
Oh.
Billy Owens.
Billy Owens.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, I would have thought Billy averaged 10.
12, Billy Owens as a senior.
What was his numbers?
23 and 12.
Wow.
How many assists? I bet you had 4 or 5 assists too.
He had 3.5 assists.
Yeah.
Trevor Cooney might do it next year with points and turnovers.
All right, that's a good question, Brad. You got anything else for us?
Yeah. Well, and it made me think of all these double doubles are only points and rebounds. Most assists per game. What's the because there was a point at which we thought Carter Williams could break all kinds of assist records for Syracuse.
Yeah.
And Central Connecticut State and all them. But what are the top assist seasons per season for Syracuse?
Sherman Douglas, senior year.
Yeah, his senior year was the best. So he had 8.6 assists a game. So that's the best assist
Ever, Syracuse, right?
per game, and he had 326 for the season total. So yeah, that was the best by far.
Second best was Sherman Douglas's junior season.
Correct.
And he couldn't have been too far behind there. 7 point something.
8.2 a game in his junior year.
Then I'm going to go Sherman Douglas's sophomore season. What do you think of that?
No, that's where
Carter Williams has what, 7.5 this year?
7.3.
3.
So there's a couple of guys ahead of Carter Williams.
Pearl?
Named Sherman Douglas. Pearl is third. So Pearl's junior year was ahead of Douglas's sophomore year. Pearl was 7.8, Douglas 7.6, and there's one guy ahead of Carter Williams.
What about Sims' the senior
That's
year?
what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's a good call. Sims had 7.4. So Sims averaged more assists that season than Carter Williams did this season. Carter Williams had the second most actual assists in one season because they just played so many more games.
Right.
How about Dante Green? He had 4 career assists.
I'm going to give you a couple other names that I better up there. Eric Sandifer.
I don't have the list in front of me.
Oh, never mind then. We don't want to waste time.
His junior year, he averaged 2 assists a game. Senior year, he averaged 3. So he's probably
really?
Leo Rollins averaged a lot more on that team, 6 and 7.
But Tony Bruin.
Fred Bruin, 2 assists.
That's it?
3 assists.
Autry?
Yeah, Autry's a good one.
But Autry.
He was more.
What about
Edelin?
Yeah, Edelin.
He did, yeah. He wasn't. He didn't get as much playing time because he didn't start. Certainly not in 2003, and then he was in and out of the lineup in 2004. But he was 3 or 4 assists a game. Expanding this, how many of the top 10 scorers throughout all of Division I college basketball can you guys name? Of course, this season only.
Top 10 scorers this season in NCAA college basketball?
Right.
McDermott.
McDermott, good one. Second.
Russ Smith.
Russ Smith is 35th on the national list.
Jeez.
McDermott.
Jesus.
The guy for Virginia Tech there.
Yeah, good one. Eric Green, 25 a game. He was number 1 in the country.
What about Harris for Virginia?
Not on the top 50.
Oh.
Who's the guy from UNLV? He had a pretty good year.
Oh, the freshman?
Also not top 50.
Okay.
This is tough.
What about that center for Gonzaga?
Couple guys in the tournament that.
Burke?
What?
Trey Burke?
Trey Burke was not. He's
Kid from Temple?
down that list.
Oh, yeah, the gunner for Temple there.
40th on the list, Trey Burke.
Wow.
What about Temple? W starts with a W.
Khalif Wyatt.
Wyatt.
12th on the national list. 20.5 a game. This guy played against Michigan, played against Trey Burke in the first round.
In the
You remember that
first
game?
round.
They were playing it up like a mano-on-mano.
Yeah, for North Dakota or whatever.
Yeah, South Dakota State.
Dakota State.
Nate Walters.
Yeah, Nate Walters.
Bucknell had a pretty good score, too, didn't they?
Big guy.
What's that?
Bucknell, the big guy for Bucknell?
Yeah, he's reasonably high on this list. He's 34th, Mike Muscala. All right, we'll come back to this, but let me spin this around. Who's the Big East leading scorer this season?
I thought it was Russ Smith.
No.
Vanderblue?
No.
Oh, Providence.
Yep.
Cotton?
Yes, Bryce Cotton.
Yeah.
Bryce Cotton is 22nd on the national list, but he's leading scorer of Big East, 19.7. Who's the leading scorer in the Big Ten this season?
Not Oladipo.
No.
Not Trey Burke. Not anybody from Ohio State. Not anybody from Wisconsin. Iowa? Had a kid?
I mean, they had a lot of kids, but none of them were the leading.
Purdue? How about Purdue? Glenn Robinson Sr.?
No. The big dogs.
Jeez, Brad, no idea. Bert, get on the iPad and pull these answers up.
You guys shouldn't have to think too hard about this one. The biggest gunner in the entire Big Ten.
Michigan's not Michigan State.
Played in the Final Eight. Beat Syracuse last year.
Deshaun Thomas?
Yes.
Really?
19.8. He was 19th in the country.
He
scored in the SEC.
That kid from
Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marshall Henderson, 20 a game, 20.1. Leading Pac-10 scorer.
Kid from Cal that we beat.
No, good guess.
He was our player of the year.
Yeah, he was like 0.1 points behind. Alan Crabb.
Yeah, Crabb was his name. Well, it certainly wasn't Muhammad at UCLA. It wasn't anybody at USC. What about one of the kids from Oregon?
No.
So at least Oregon State, Washington,
Arizona State, if that gives you guys any hints.
James Harden. I don't know.
Me neither.
What about Lyon from
No, Lyons wasn't on this list. Jahai Carson.
Oh, Jahai Carson.
Harden's a perfect example of a guy if you saw him play in college and didn't think he would be.
We played him in the tournament.
I know, he was awful.
Yeah, we shut him down.
The guy was slow, wasn't very athletic, and yeah, he exploded.
He's still slow, but he's rich. Very rich now. Playing for Houston, right, Jer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's our producer's favorite NBA team, the Houston Rockets. He was pretty pumped when Johnny Flynn moved over, but didn't pan out.
Here's something that's interesting for you guys. There's 13 guys averaged double-double in college basketball this year. Which conference featured the most of those 13 guys? And there's a reason I asked this question.
Could it be the ACC?
Jesus.
No, only one guy in the ACC.
What was the question?
Double-double.
What conference has the most double doubles?
Any idea who in the ACC might average a double-double? You'll forget it.
I was thinking Plumlee.
Richard Howell.
NC State?
Yeah.
Jeez, I don't know, Brad. These are.
You'll never get it. Richard Howell.
Yeah, but who? What conference? What's the answer to that question?
You don't know. CAA, Colonial Conference.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
Even with losing those teams to the Atlantic 10.
One guy from Towson, one guy from Delaware, one guy from UNC Wilmington. And one guy from William & Mary's on the top 50 scorers in the country, for Marcus Thornton.
Yeah.
Is Curry in the top 10?
Only a sophomore. No.
No.
I gotta hear it. I never heard of half the guys on the list.
Here's another one. One guy from Section 5 is in the top 50 scorers of the season.
Guy from Buffalo.
McCray?
Javon McCray.
Newark.
He's a stud.
Right?
Yep.
49th, 18 a game.
Used to call him Baby Shaq in 5th grade. He's the best.
Soon to be coached by Bobby Hurley.
Yeah, good call. Bobby Hurley coaching Buffalo next year.
Right. not coaching Rutgers?
No.
I could keep going, guys, but that's probably plenty.
Yeah, that'll close it down for another great season of trivia, Brad. Thanks for coming up with those questions all year. And then 1 or 2 episodes that you weren't able to make it, I came up with some questions myself. So give you a full summer to come up with new material for next year.
Guys, study up on the ACC. I'll just warn you right now.
Yeah, actually, we're going to be looking at ACC trivia next year.
It's going to be hard.
To be well informed.
Well, speaking of next year, we are off to the ACC, and it's going to be a pretty bad conference because NC State lost everybody. They're going to be terrible next year. They lost C.J. Leslie, the Purvis transferring. 2 other guys have declared. Miami they lose everybody off that great team. North Carolina, has anybody declared from North Carolina yet for the draft? Any of those guys?
No, I think so.
Yeah, now that could be an improved team if they all stay. Duke loses Curry, Plumlee,
Kelly, I think too.
Kelly.
They got the number 1 player coming in though, or number 2 player. What's his face there?
Jabari Parker.
Yeah.
And
they got that transfer from Mississippi State or what? Some crazy school.
Mississippi State, yeah, Rodney Hood.
Yeah, he's supposed to be awesome too.
Yep.
What about Suleiman? He's coming back?
Yeah.
He's coming back, yeah.
Duke will be okay, but
they're going to be preseason top 5, I guarantee.
Yeah, I mean,
you think?
Early top 25s I've seen. They've got Duke, Carolina, Syracuse all top 10, and that's it for the ACC.
What about the other Plumlee? He's back. The other Plumlee brother.
Yeah, he didn't play it all this year.
Yeah, I mean, is he going to step in? Or?
I don't know. He's supposed to, according to Corsi, he's the best of the Plumlees, but
well, I saw Corsi tonight. He said he was too tired to make it in tonight. What about George? Boston College should be a little better, but not a ranked team. They're young this year. They were so young this year, though. Tom Donahue, former Cornell coach.
Maryland had a nice run in the NIT, but I think they lose a couple of guys. Alex Len was their big guy who really played great later in the season. I think he declared.
Is that the big guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's out of there.
And then you got Wake Forest. Going to be a little better next year, Brad?
They're bringing Bizdelic back, despite the fact he's won 1 road game in the ACC in 3 years.
Tyler Kavanaugh will be a sophomore, though. JD product. Who else am I missing? Florida State. They were a bit of a disappointment this year. But, yeah, this is what we're going to be talking about next year. The Georgia Tech Florida State game. As far as Syracuse goes, I mean, next year we're going to have more new faces that could have an immediate impact. It's going to be exciting. So I'm looking at our roster for next year right here, and these are our guards. Tyler Ennis, freshman point guard next year, who you can watch him Saturday night in the Jordan Brand Classic on ESPN2. Looking forward to checking that out. Trevor Cooney, Michael Benajay, the transfer for Duke, 6'7" swingman, shooting guard, small forward. I listed him as a guard, though, because we apparently are going to need some guards next year. And Ron Patterson. He originally committed to Indiana, but Tom Crean over recruits, and he pulled his scholarship offer. Kind of a dick move. So we got Patterson now, 6'3", 195-pound shooting guard. Forwards, keep my fingers crossed, C.J. Fair, Jeremi Grant, who should really be fun to watch next year, Tyler Roberson, 6'8" freshman, and B.J. Armstrong. He's more of a small forward, 6'7".
B.J. Johnson.
B.J. Johnson, yeah. Sorry, not B.J. Armstrong.
B.J. he couldn't play forward.
We could use B.J. Armstrong next year, though, on this team to run the point, but unfortunately he has no eligibility. He lost his eligibility in 1989, probably.
I'm wondering about B.J. Johnson. He's 6'7", 165.
Yeah, well, he's...
Red shirt.
Yeah, but Aboko's
could
probably
be
getting the red shirt, too.
Yeah, well, that brings me to the big men. Raheem Christmas, Baikita, Dajuan Coleman, and Chinoso Aboku. So
I'd say Aboku's a lock for a red
for
shirt.
a red shirt.
Yeah, that's a guarantee.
He even almost said it like he kind of wanted to in the
Sure.
DNC.
Yeah.
Well, there's no room for him. I don't think Oboka's going to play power forward for us.
No.
So I'm looking at this roster, and I think we're pretty stacked. My only concern is at point guard, because you got Ennis, and then who's going to spell him at point guard? It's going to be Cooney. It's not going to be 6'7" Benajay, and I don't know enough about Patterson's game, but he doesn't seem to be a point guard. He seems to be more of a
Yeah, I think he's more of a two guard.
So I think Trevor Cooney's going to run the point for us a lot next year when to spell Ennis.
That's never going to happen.
You don't think? Well, who's going to do it then when Ennis comes out of the game? Who's
Jeremi Grant? Seriously.
I think Cooney can do it. I think the biggest problem with Cooney is when he shoots. I think Cooney can handle the ball and play defense.
We got to hope that maybe he'll be a little more comfortable next year.
He's got to be.
Hopefully he's going to get some more minutes. I don't know. He's had a disappointing year all the way around.
I mean, we're going to need him.
Except for the...
if he has to be backup point guard, we're in big trouble.
He is, though, unless we got to walk on.
I mean, somebody on here has got to be able to play backup point guard.
Well, your options are 6'3" Patterson and a 6'7" Michael Benajay.
Patterson and Benajay. Somebody's got Joe Bart and freaking Cooney.
If Cooney truly is a great 3-point threat, and I'm still not convinced of it, then you can't have him bring the ball up. It takes the
just for a backup.
That's right out of it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying when Ennis comes, Ennis is a fresh. First of all, this
He's going to be like Johnny Flynn. He's never going to come out.
That's the one thing that makes me nervous about this team. Tyler Ennis is supposedly advertises, he's a 5-star guy, so he should step right in. But nonetheless, he is a freshman. We've never seen him before, and he's our only point guard on our roster. And if things don't work out, or what if Ennis, has an injury? I don't understand how we're going to play basketball. With what's left, we need a point guard.
We got a walk on somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
walk on like the guy from Louisville
Nolan
came
Hart.
off the bench.
See
that?
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. Which
Pretty awesome.
he may never had the opportunity if Ware didn't get hurt.
Definitely wouldn't have.
So, I don't know. Nolan Hart, Brad, is he our backup point guard next year?
Yeah, he's going to have to be.
But-
5'4" running the point.
Jim, this might be your year to try out.
I'm too tall for the point. 6'1". Actually, no, too wide. I need to operate down low. This Patterson, though, maybe Patterson could do it. He's 6'3", 195 pounds.
I haven't even seen the guy, and I trust him more than Trevor Cooney at point.
Yeah, he had a game-winning shot to help his team win the NEP SAC, which is he played at Brewster Academy last year. But yeah, it's other than that, and Benajay's really exciting to me to think that we got a 6'7" guy who can play shooting guard or our small forward. But the other thing looking at this roster is where's our shooters? Who's our shooters? As far as what as far as what we know, he's the
I'll tell
only
you right now,
one.
the point guard can shoot better than Carter Williams could.
Well,
I saw him make 3 threes in the game on Saturday, the National High School Championship game. So he's a better scorer right now.
Well, that's good to know because hopefully Benajay and Patterson can hit it. Maybe Grant will continue to develop his shot. This Armstrong, Johnson, B.J. Johnson, potentially, could. But we don't have many options. We lose Trish and Sutherland, our two best. If you can argue Fair was a better shooter, but he didn't shoot in bulk
I think the forwards are going to be better than last year. Fair's going to get better, and I think Grant has the potential. He's not the same player as Sutherland, but he brings a lot more. Defensively and rebounding, he's a lot better than Sutherland was. He just needs to work on his offense a little bit. But he played great when Sutherland was out this year. They beat some good teams, and they just got to get the backcourt in line, and they'll be good.
One of those guys, Christmas or Coleman's got to. They got to have some offense by next year too.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Christmas is kind of a scary year for him because I think if Coleman develops, you could see him.
Sure, because Keita's. We know what we're getting with Keita.
Keita's going to do what he's going to do.
Yeah,
but
probably not going to improve or regress. He's probably going to be what he's.
I wonder if he's going to start Coleman next year with Keita or Christmas, like he did for the first 20 games this year.
No, he'll probably do that with somebody else and pull him.
If Coleman could get his defense where Boeheim needs it to be, I mean, to me, he's the guy, right? Because his offense is more polished than Christmas and Keita combined. I mean, we see that in the short spurts that we saw him this season. It's just he gets yanked the first time he screws up on defense. He just didn't understand the principles of playing in the middle of that 2-3, and Keita and Christmas did.
And Coleman was hampered with an injury for most of the season too. But I think the opportunity from all these players I'm looking at to make the biggest jump, the leap, would be Coleman. I could see him coming back next year and giving us 25 minutes and being a 8 or 10 point a game and a 5 or 6 rebound a game type of guy in what's a crowded front court.
I mean, he's pretty highly touted. You would hope so.
He's a beast. I mean, he's physically strong as a freshman. A lot of guys come in, front court players, and they're need to put on some bulk, but Coleman needs to take off a little bulk. But I agree. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think Grant's got a ton of upside. Even above and beyond what he did for us this year. I think when he's gets a chance to have a spot in the lineup where he knows he's going to be playing 30 minutes a game, that he's going to explode onto the scene. And probably, next year at this time, we're going to be talking about Grant going pro. I mean,
let's hope.
Yeah,
that would be
one of their guys kind of makes that second-year leap.
So I got a starting lineup of Ennis, Benajay, Fair, Grant, Christmas. That's who I think is going to start next year, without ever seeing Michael Benajay play. The only other option there might be Cooney or Patterson. Getting that shooting guard start, or maybe Boeheim going with somebody different. Just to start at center. I could even see him going with, like you said, Christmas and Coleman, and then Fair, Benajay, and Ennis, and Grant comes off the bench as 6 man. Who knows what Boeheim's going to do? Who really knows?
It's like to have his 6 man come off hot like he had with Waiters and Sutherland for most of the year.
Yeah, that's something he's developed. He did it with Waiters too.
Yeah.
Number 4 pick in the draft. He never even started for Syracuse.
See that with Grant.
So, it's to me, next year's a big year. The last thing we want to do is go to the ACC and not compete for it, or it's one thing I think would love to win it right off the bat, but if we go to the ACC next year and finish 5th place, that's pretty embarrassing, I think. So going to miss the Big East, but that's what I'm going to be focusing on next year is representing.
Have they locked in with any of those teams to play them for like one game, like a Georgetown?
St. John's is the only one, I think.
So they're not even playing Louisville next year, right?
No, they won't. They won't play Louisville. They won't play Georgetown. We're going to Maui next year. I don't think there's any Big East teams in there because I think when we accepted that bid, they normally don't take 2 from a conference. So we might actually see an ACC team in that Maui field next year. I don't wish I had the field in front of me, but
Syracuse going to Maui next year?
Yeah,
Baylor's in that tournament, I know.
Yeah, you're right. Baylor's in there. So it's a weaker field. This year was a really good field in Maui, but it's a weaker field.
You got it. It's Minnesota. Gonzaga's in it. Cal again. Dayton, Baylor, Arkansas.
That's not bad.
Pretty good field.
Yeah.
Minnesota, Chaminade, of course. It's not a bad field.
We'll take Chaminade in the opener.
Yeah.
They beat somebody this year, didn't they?
I think so.
Yeah, they did.
First time in a long time since they beat Ralph Sampson in
Texas, I think, didn't
1982. Yeah, they killed Texas. That's right.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's going to put a wrap on the season for us here. Any parting shots, fellas, before we get out of here?
Good year. Final Four for the Cuse, and
another Final Four.
Looking forward to another new year next year.
Maybe a national title next year. Zach, what are your thoughts about next year? What's the ceiling?
Ceiling? Final Four.
National title?
Well, we always hope that, but we'll see.
And what's the basement?
Oh, we're getting in the tournament, no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't think, as long as CJ comes back.
If Cooney averages 10 points a game, we'll win it all.
And Brad, do you think Cooney's going to be our backup point guard next year? Trevor Cooney?
He will play spot minutes at point guard, much to everyone's chagrin.
He's going to have to.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be the number one option. I think Boeheim will develop somebody else only because I think he wants him off the ball to be able to spot him up for three. But
Let me tell you guys something, though.
Maybe he's better playing the point, so he's not shooting.
He's going to work with GMAC also.
Yeah, Cooney is going to be fine next year. Trevor Cooney is going to be a contributor. We don't just throw away scholarships anymore here at Syracuse. He's, like you say, he's going to work with GMAC and Autry and the rest of the coaches. He's going to improve his game. He's a worker. I'm banking on Cooney turning it around next year, becoming Verk's favorite Syracuse player of all time. So, but until then, so we'll be back in October to start another Orange basketball season. I should remind you now that if you want to hook up with us, so you keep tabs on us when we do come back in October, look for our feed on iTunes or Stitcher.com under Upstate Hoops, not Upstate Orange. Look under Upstate Hoops, search for it, and subscribe to us on RSS. Our website's podcast.fingerlakes1.com/Upstate Hoops, and hook up with us so when we do come back, we'll be back. And Zach, thanks for coming in so many times this year and sharing an exciting season, with us, because I think it was an exciting season.
That was fun.
It was a fun postseason, and it's always good to be one of the last four teams standing. Verk, thanks for sitting to the right of me for this whole season. We were up here quite a bit, and Brad, thanks for making the time to give us a call every Thursday night. And thanks to our producer, Jeremy Hunt, for manning the board all season. And we'll see you all back next year, 2013-14 Syracuse Orange season. Until then, have a great summer, folks. See you.